Welcome. I'm Doug from HD Ellsworth. The D in HD, if you don't get it, you're definitely not my wife, and this is Dying to Retire. Join me on a candid journey from my government job to the freedom of retirement. As one of the last of the baby boomers, I am hanging up my federal badge and diving into what comes next. I will talk about what led to my decision, on why it was time for me to retire, and what I did right, and what mistakes I have made. I am not an HR expert, nor am I a financial advisor, so I have made a few mistakes. When I can, I'll slice through the noise of today's headlines with a sharp, no-holds-barred commentary delivered with the kind of honesty only retirement can afford. This podcast is a safe space for non-woke people, and while I try to keep everything somewhat above board, and if it has to be said bluntly, it will be. Vegas rules apply here, so let's get started.
You know, it's funny how life has its way of bringing unexpected twists and turns. In this episode, I will give a little background on myself and all in all how I got from there to here. As I approach my 60th birthday next year, or actually now this year, I find myself standing at the precipice of retirement. In my optics, while I have a government job that pays well and will provide me with a small pension, which I am grateful for, it is stressful. Okay, it's highly stressful. And I'm at the point at my career as a mid career hire, my employer will not promote me again. Let's just say I don't check the D, I, or E boxes on what many of today's employers, from the private sector to the government entities, are looking to recruit, let alone promote. The perfect visual for this current work environment is when Saturday Night Live was funny and topical. I'm essentially a Chris Farley auditioning for a job, and my competition is Patrick Swayze. Yes, they will let me apply for the job, and if I'm lucky, I may even get invited to do an interview. However, regardless of how well I audition, is about as far as it will go. I have to face the facts. It is what it is, and I'm not the only one. And for all of those of you who don't know what a mid career hire is, it's people like me who, after high school or college, went into the military or worked directly, or a better way to say it, went directly into the workforce, or did a combination of both, versus those who, right after school, went directly into the government. Sometimes a mid career hire gets credit for their non government work they did, but most often they do not. There are exceptions, and we can cover that likely in another episode. So it was time for me to take that leap of faith. And as Monty Hall used to say, pick what is behind door number 3, retirement, or a version of it, and enter a new chapter of my life. That said, while my retirement won't exactly be by the Webster's definition, I want to, no, that's not the right word. I have to get off this crazy hamster wheel and escape the daily grind. It also doesn't help that rush hour going to and from work sucks. I-270 sucks. 495 sucks. Legion Bridge sucks. It all sucks. But here's the thing. Unlike what my wife thinks I plan to do when she hears the word retirement coming out of my mouth, when I say I will retire, I'm not saying I plan to fade into the background and just sit on the couch eating bonbons. Shit, I am fat enough already, and I do not know what a bonbon is. I really do not. Besides, my go to is chocolate chip cookies and peanut butter cups. I don't like Oprah. I don't like The View. What I'm saying is that when I want to break free from the constraints of the daily grind and seek new opportunities that come my way, one of these opportunities is this podcast, Dying to Retire. Let me tell you a little secret about myself in this podcast. Sometimes I will digress. Most of the time, I plan to chat about retirement from the layman's perspective, from my decision making process to what decisions we have made to date, plan to make to better position me and us for retirement. But as I said, I will digress, so you can't say I didn't warn you. So bear with me when I delve into current events and news, local, national, global, or just stuff that makes me go WTF. And I may drop a bad word here or there, just where you know. While politically I lean towards the right, I highly recommend each of you go to the website isidewith.com and take a survey. The survey, even with the additional drop downs, and I highly recommend you do those, will take you about 30 minutes to complete. What I like about the website, it will compile your responses and compare them with each of the candidates and with each of the political parties. I have to laugh. A few years ago, my deputy took the survey and discovered they were more aligned with the Conservative Party and the Conservative candidates than what they've been traditionally voting for over the years. In short, she was and essentially is a 1970s blue dog Democrat. Oh, what the horrors. That said, for the most part, I honestly couldn't care less what people do in the privacy of their own homes. But let me clarify that in their own homes, not the workplace, general public, or office of elected officials, or the conference rooms, boardrooms, or whatever you want to call the rooms. It's that simple. In 2018, I came across a podcast called The Expat Files Living in Latin America with Johnny Mueller. It was and is a podcast about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great on retiring in Central and South America. I found the podcast just around the time my wife and I returned from visiting her parents' familial home in Guatemala City. And after this experience, it got me thinking, and well, let's just say the plan is to play the reverse Uno card on my wife. In later episodes, I will cover more about that reverse Uno card and our plan B of moving down to her familiar, plan B of moving down to her familiar home when we retire. In 2019, life took an unexpected twist for me. I slipped on the ice, doing some stupid shit, and injured my shoulder. While the x rays showed there were no broken bones, it was just an impingement, they revealed I had two nodules on my throat. Let's just say it's a little unnerving knowing that before giving you the x ray results, they've already scheduled an appointment with what would eventually become your endocrinologist. So from 2020 to 2021, I underwent something like 5 to 7 biopsies called fine needle aspirations. Each biopsy was a little bit worse than the one before as the number of needles went up, used to collect the number of specimens. Each was worse, each was a little worse than the one before. As the number of needles used to collect a specimen increased, 3 became 4, 4 became 5, and for the last one, I think 5 became 7. It went from saying they couldn't rule out cancer to try to figure out what type of cancer it was. And despite what could have been a very bad thing, it was a wake up call for me. Why? Well, at each of my biopsy appointments, on either side of me were patients each and every time going through biopsies far worse than mine. One time, I had a guy on my right getting a punch to his pancreas as the doctors were trying to figure out how far the cancer had progressed. Plus, they were doing a couple other things. On the on another time, there was a man on my left. He had end stage renal cancer. Was also getting a biopsy. I think it was to see how far radiation, whatever it was, had shrunk the tumor that was eventually going to kill him. These men were not crying or saying, "Woe is me." They were polite to the medical staff and even made jokes. While this was a suck it up buttercup moment for me, it was the moment I realized I wanted more out of life. More than just being a worker bee, not just another peon in the cubicle who works until they can't work and then just dies. In late spring 2020, I found myself undergoing 2 thyroid surgeries that eventually left me without a thyroid and just a smidgen of a parathyroid. In those 2 years, thanks to COVID delays, what started out as 2 tumors on my neck on my thyroid became 5. Weeks after my last surgery, I underwent radiation ablation therapy to be exact. Sounds worse than it is. I essentially just swallowed a pill designed to kill off any remaining thyroid tissue and had to self isolate. I shit you not, this was the one and only time I caught COVID, despite being work mandated vaccinated. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, or falsely. It ended up being just a mild case of COVID, and the doctors got me on meds right away. It was here at this point in my life I woke up and realized it was time to start thinking about slowing down in retirement. Originally, when this all started, I said, I'll make it to 62. Nope, this all changed. Talking to the doctors, talking to everybody, stress can kill you. And it's really not good for people with ongoing thyroid issues, let alone any other issue, let alone any cancer issue. And then life threw more shit my way. My wife's in my way. One of our dogs died, but we took solace that she had a good life because she made it to 14 years old. For a Welsh Terrier, that's pretty damn good. Then, less than a month later, my dad sadly passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Then, 3 months later, almost to the same day, my mom passed away from what should have been a very treatable illness. Being old and stubborn, refusing to see a doctor will do that to a person. Up until my dad's heart attack, during my commute home from work to the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland, I would call one of my parents each day alternating. We talk about the shitty traffic and how much they did not envy me living in the DC metro area. We discussed politics, world events, and my plan B for retirement, that reverse Uno card. These chats made the time and my drive home so much better. I miss them, my parents, and it's easy to say their absence has left a great void in my life. Not so fun fact number one. Per a 2023 Go Banking Rates study, the average retirement age in Alabama is 58. The average amount of money needed in savings to retire is $818,555. When that person was 18, let's say a fresh high school graduate, do you think they had any inclination that they would need that much money or that they would be that old before they were ready to think about retiring? When you were 18, how much money did you think you would need? And at what age did you think you were going to retire? All right, moving on. Speaking of playing the reverse Uno card, how about another reason to get out of Dodge? Get out of the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland. In a recent November 2023 article on Fox News about a chain drugstore in DC and their shoplifting prevention scheme, the story comes across as an original, super cool idea to thwart individuals or groups from filling garbage bags with merchandise and walking out the door. However, at the end of the day, it turns out the store was no longer putting out merchandise. Isn't that what stores are supposed to do? Instead, they opted to put framed photos of products on the store shelves and keeping the merchandise in the back, which anyone can walk out and just grab. While possibly effective in curbing the immediate theft, the jury is still out on that one. This approach has unintended consequences for the unsuspecting good customers. Picture this: you walk into the store intending to make a quick trip for essentials for the wife, only to find framed photos instead of the actual products. Now, picture this: to purchase an item, you press a customer service button, and if that didn't work, or 45 minutes later when no one shows up, you have to go to the register or walk around up and down the aisles trying to find a mythical clerk asking, "Can you see a roll of Charmin?" What was once a straightforward errand for tampons or special types of sanitary napkins or some other product for the wife, stuff with wings, size small, not large, turns into that recurring nightmare all of us husbands have. The irony, or perhaps the unfortunate reality, is that the photo used in the article was of a framed picture featuring rolls of toilet paper and flushable butt wipes. This seemingly innovative anti shoplifting strategy inadvertently creates a more inconvenient and potential embarrassing shopping experience for everyday shoppers. Also, what bothers me is this great idea had to come from upon high from from the drugstore's senior management. Instead of combating shoplifting and holding bad people who steal accountable for their actions, it now appears as they're punishing the honest people. I'm not saying I want, and please, I am not saying I want shoplifters to have their hands cut off. Besides, that's the job of the courts. I can see the boardroom meeting now. which the idea came from. Mr. Big CEO, I need ideas, people, and I need them now. If we don't do something soon to stop all the shoplifting, it's going to keep costing us tons of money, and our insurance premiums are going through the roof. And the one idea, their best idea, that they decide upon and shut the front door on this one isn't, or to me, is a PR nightmare that purposely inconveniences customers, loyal customers. And they'd rather do that than be known as a company that actually prosecutes people who steal. As I consider my retirement and the prospects of leaving behind the daily grind, personal anecdotes and news stories such as this reinforce my desire to break free from this bizarre world known as the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland, and also the DC metro area, and execute my plan B. I don't, and I bet you don't either, want to live in retirement wasting time going to and navigating a store that feels more like a gallery of framed pictures of toilet paper, shit paper, that's supposed to be a place of convenience. This incident highlights a broader concern of mine and what was of my parents before they passed about the societal shifts and inconveniences that await us all. And if it's not about framed photos in drugstores, it's really about the reflection and the evolving landscape that could and should influence where you and I want to spend our daily lives in retirement.
That's it for today. Curious, concerned, or just want to chat? I'm all ears. Reach out at dyingtoretirepodcast@gmail.com. And if you find yourself nodding along or you just enjoy the ride, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hasta luego.